Williams.
Some sun to start us off, then clouds on the increase. The high today 58. A passing shower this evening, otherwise cloudy tonight, low 40. And then for tomorrow and Friday, mostly cloudy, chilly. The high tomorrow 50. Friday's high 52. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
41 at O'Hare, 44 Lakefront. Next news coming up at 7:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by CharlesEquipment.com, keeping you powered up no matter what the conditions.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Supportive call from Joe Biden and support in person from Elizabeth Warren yesterday, Chicago Teachers Union. Elizabeth Warren, everybody in America should stand with Chicago teachers, the Chicago Teachers Union. You know why? Because they're leading the way to a better tomorrow.
Everyone in America should support you in this strike.
Thank you.
And the reason is because when you go out and fight, you don't just fight for yourselves. You fight for the children of this city and the children of this country.
Wow. They're doing a lot
breathless.
of children of the city and
children of the world,
Dan. The world. Boy, CTU's become a global operation. I had no idea.
I believe in public education, and I believe it is time in America to make a new investment in public education.
And she was in the perfect environment to announce that new investment, quote unquote, she wants to make $800 billion. $800 billion. This is Warren's latest plan. I mean, this is somebody who spends tens of trillions of dollars we'll never have on all kinds of things, from the Green New Deal to Medicare for all, government takeover of health insurance. So why not throw $800 billion into the kitty?
It's a good number
for
man.
the kiddies.
I'm here to stand for America's public schools. I believe in. That starts with an $800 billion investment in our public schools. It starts with quadrupling our federal funding for Title I schools. Let's level the playing.
And she goes on to talk about $450 billion over 10 years for those Title I funds, low-income students, $200 billion for students with disabilities, $100 billion in other grants, $50 billion for school buildings. She wants to federalize K-12 education is what she's doing. And, of course, how is this paid for? This is something else that will, again, be paid for with the wealth tax. Sure. Okay. I'll tell you what, she is in a woozy dreamland, and so she felt comfortable to offer another one of her woozy dreamscapes, Chicago being the perfect backdrop for it. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by Chicago Tribune editorial board member Kristen McQueary. Kristen, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Good morning.
Morning. Since we're not really all that concerned about math or balancing what we have versus what we're spending, I mean, just generally, all of us in this city, then why doesn't Lori Lightfoot just cave? Just say, here's a check, just fill in a number, or I'll just make all of these commitments that we know we'll never be able to finance in the next contract, because what's the difference? That's what we do every day at every level of government in Illinois. So what's another one?
Well, I mean, some would argue she did that. She gave away the store in her initial offer, and there was no store to be given. She already has overly generous cost of living raises on the table. Your listeners are sophisticated enough to know that at this point, this is not really about the money. It's a power struggle between her administration and a Chicago Teachers Union that is trying to stay relevant. And when you have Joe Biden and Ed Warren and Bernie Sanders swooping in and calling CTU President Jesse Sharkey, it just feeds what is driving this whole strike, which is ego and political power and, like I said, a union with shrinking members and shrinking schools and shrinking students that is trying to be relevant.
Well, yesterday the Board of Education added another $500 million more in over 5 years of the contract, and the delegates didn't even go in to take a vote yesterday because they're mad and they're having a pissy fit over the fact that she sent a letter to the union saying, "Hey, let's go back to class. Let's figure this out while kids are still in school."
500 million is insulting. I said 2.5 billion.
Oh,
I'm not. It was 500 million. How dare you, madam? How dare you?
so how do you?
I mean, it's really
Yeah.
it's really absurd. And I don't have kids at CPS. I have kids at a small Catholic school in a working class neighborhood that has no library, no librarian, no social worker, only recently got air conditioning, no art classes, music classes when they can get a teacher, foreign language maybe when they can get a teacher. I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you that the efficiencies that are found in systems that are forced to be efficient are actually pretty remarkable. And this is a system at CPS where there is just absolutely no efficiencies to be found whatsoever. And you have a teachers union that continues to add things at the bargaining table. Like now you have coaches, and I understand their plight, and athletic directors also wanting to get a piece of the pie
Right.
because they feel underpaid for athletic programs.
I thought actually, because I got a email about that saying coaches are meeting with CTU. I thought that they were going to say, "Hey, let's get back to work so that we can play our games." They went there to get a piece of the pie.
You know why they did that?
I couldn't believe it.
That was also for the kids, though.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I think they're going to split it with the kids. Am I right about that, McQueary?
I doubt it. And again, I hate to keep referring to the Catholic school model, but in the Catholic school model, which has much better outputs, they also have volunteer coaches. I'm sure Amy was making like $60,000 coaching all
right.
those volleyball kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you lean on your parents and your school community to pitch in where they can.
I would call you an elitist, but we know that 50% of CPS teachers send their kids to private school. So
that's true.
that elitist label has lost some of its luster with those who are not sending their kids to CPS, but who want to comment on CPS, including with so many of the teachers that are walking around in black shirts today.
Yeah.
Make sure you're color coordinated. Black shirts today for Mayor Lightfoot's budget address, and then we go back to red shirts for all of us in solidarity with the Chicago teachers on Thursday for those of you scoring at home.
Wow, I'm glad we have all of our outfits color coordinated, and
It's the important thing.
Make a difference.
Teachers by my neck of the woods were like doing the Macarena.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures of teachers at bars at noon. I was getting images on Facebook of teachers out grilling, like cooking burgers, like this is a huge occasion. And meanwhile, you have students who are missing out on playoffs, who have worked their whole lives to achieve something with their athletic capabilities, and the teachers are celebrating the fact that kids are at home. I mean, Amy, I don't know how I would be so angry if I were a CPS parent.
Oh, I had a mental breakdown yesterday. I was bawling.
But
then I did something about it because we're going to have our own playoffs because our playoffs are going to be canceled. The city championship for freshman girls volleyball. Not that anybody cares about volleyball.
No.
But you don't. But I've rented a gym. And we're going to contacted the 4 final teams, and we're going to have our own playoffs.
You know what you should do
Good
for the
for
playoffs?
you.
You know what you should do there?
Wait.
Bring in Los Del Rio to play in between games. And you can do a Macarena as well, but actually have that one-hit wonder there.
You're going to go, Dan.
Wouldn't
You're
that
going to
be
hand
fun?
out the big trophy that I bought.
I'll have one of my friends come over and grill. I don't want anybody to lose out on these important cultural touchstones.
But also, kids can't get transcripts to apply for colleges. We met a girl from Taft who is a senior who she's going to literally have to call each college and tell them the situation because CPS is completely shut down. Teachers don't have access to their emails or to any class records. You can't reach a teacher.
Kristen,
there's strike. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say I have a CPS administration building near where I live as well, and yes, the parking lot is empty. The people who are unionized in that building are out striking. So you're right about that. The whole system is shut down.
Hey, by the way, just thinking about this globally here in Illinois, statewide, interested to see this number. Illinois is not the biggest state. We don't have the most people. We don't have the most students. But we do have the most spending on administrators. This, according to a report from the Metropolitan Planning Council, the state's 852 school districts spent more than $1 billion in fiscal year 2016. That's the most in the nation. So we are leading the way, as Elizabeth Warren said, with union support.
Well, yes, we have highly paid administrators. This is the tricky part about talking about the CTU strike, is because then it sort of forces you to veer on the opposite side, which is the side of CPS, which I don't want to be on that side either. I mean, This is a school district that has where's the money going? I mean, we have $500 million in new money from the state. Property taxes are raised to the max for CPS every single year, which average is about $250 million extra dollars every year. They're talking about a graduated income tax. They get a lot of the TIF funds swept. So if they don't have books in their rooms, or they have class sizes that are too big, where is the money going? That it's extremely frustrating. I don't want to be on the side of the bureaucracy either.
So when I hear you say, where's the money going, what we're to understand is that we're not spending any money on K through 12 education. That's how I process that, because I want to be in keeping with how this story is covered and with the propaganda coming from parents, teachers, administrators, politicians. We don't spend any money on K. Hey, we find enough money to spend for tax breaks for big corporations, Kristen McQueary. When are we going to find some money for the schools?
Right. No, I mean, CPS spends an extraordinary amount per student. They are paying down almost 25 cents of every dollar is now going to pay down debt, because they did so much scoop and toss financing throughout the last decade, where they were borrowing money through general obligation bonds, which are supposed to go to like bricks and mortar type projects, and they were spending them on books and settlements and operating expenses. The money trail is just absurd. And now you have Mayor Lightfoot is going to give her budget address today to the city council. So I doubt the strike is going to get settled today. The CTU leaders will want to have their moment in the spotlight, and they know that she's going to get it today. So you can probably count on them being home for at least a couple more days.
And today that'll be triple the ride-sharing tax in downtown, and increased taxes on restaurants and bars, and increased property taxes unless Springfield bails Chicago out to some effect. And I don't want to just skip ahead, do the transactions tax, do what the Progressive Caucus on the City Council wants, do the city income tax, do the whole thing, the full Monty. Not literally.
Yeah, I'm not seeing, please, not literally. I'm not seeing much in her budget that is different than any other budget before her. She is coming to the Tribune later this afternoon, so I will be asking her a lot of these questions. But in terms of structural change, I do think voters, she was elected overwhelmingly in every ward in the city, and I do think it wasn't just that they were looking for ethical change on the city council. They were looking for change in the way that we budget and the way that we prioritize. And so far, from what I've seen, she's just looking at throwing spaghetti at a wall and figuring out which taxes will be least offensive.
Hey, maybe ask her this question, too, since she's coming in for a sit-down. Why isn't she not pushing back against the red herrings being offered by the Chicago Teachers Union? All this stuff, this is the problem. Everybody starts from the same premise, and those premises turn out to be false. For example, overcrowding. Overcrowding in CPS school, this is a real problem. We looked at all the high schools in CPS. The average size of a freshman class is like 198, which is substantially smaller than virtually every suburban school district, even in a state that has school districts on top of school districts. And, of course, we know in the South and West Side neighborhoods that have been depopulated, there is a fraction of the student population overall that used to be there, say, 20 years ago, where you have entire schools that have less than 200 kids. So why not challenge that lie?
I think she is, to an extent. I'm just not sure it's getting covered, if you know what I mean. I think she is putting some of those numbers out there. I mean, she keeps repeating the fact that in the current school year budget that we are now in, there are some new 550 positions for teachers, social workers, nurses, 550 funded positions in the current school year budget. Only about maybe 20% of classrooms could be even classified as overcrowded, and it depends on what you consider to be overcrowded. So I think she's trying to put that out. I'm just not sure that that's the storyline that the media is really running with.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, have you guys gotten word, you probably get this before we do, when Nick Maduro is going to come in from Venezuela to rally with the teachers' unions?
I wouldn't be surprised if he's maybe here. Maybe he's sort of like holed up in a CTU conference room somewhere, giving instructions and trying to rally the troops. But I mean, there is no question that the socialist agenda is part of the CTU's agenda. They're now talking about rent control, trying to get the mayor to commit to that, which is actually a statewide issue. And if they have an issue with that, go talk to Mike Madigan, who you help fund, and all of his lawmakers. They are the ones pushing and actually sitting on now a rent control bill in Springfield.
One other process legality issue, just to inform folks who, want to see the teachers' PAT code. PATCO was a wildcat strike with the air traffic controllers back in the early 80s. It was not a legal strike. This is a legal strike. It's animated by state law that provides for teachers to strike, which is different than 3/4 of the other states. And then also the matter of whether or not teachers can cross the picket line, that's potentially arguably in violation of their agreement to be a member of the teachers union.
Right. I mean, you can cross the picket line as the Englewood teacher you interviewed the other day has been doing. He did get kicked out of the union. This was before the Janus ruling, which now allows teachers, and there are actually thousands of educators across the state who have left their unions and are now paying no dues. But if you cross picket lines, you can almost be put on trial by your union. They have to vote, and you have to go through sort of like a court proceeding. They consider you to be, quote, grossly disloyal for doing it. And to me, to look at this teacher who's just wanting to be with students in Englewood who would otherwise be like roaming the streets or sitting home alone, parents who are working, that's what they consider to be, quote, grossly disloyal.
I also love sort of the loyalty pledge, like, I don't know. It calls to mind like, are you now or have you ever been a member of the Chicago Teachers Union? It's remarkable times we're living in, but I think this is going very well. And if Lori Lightfoot would just turn over the keys to the teachers union formally, I think we could get this ugliness behind us.
Possibly. I would just like to add one thing. You have talked on your show a lot about that you're not anti-union, that there's grave differences between public employee unions and private employee unions. And even strikes, I think, are fundamental to the foundation of our country. However, strikes in the 20s and 30s and 40s at canneries and pilots and cigar makers even, Dan.
Yes.
They had employers who were proposing wage cuts. They had employers who were forcing them to give part of their wages back, in some cases up to 40%. They had employers who were taking holidays away completely, who were forcing them to work 14-hour shifts. So to think how far this movement has come, that now you have teachers striking when they have such a generous offer on the table, just shows you how the labor movement, and especially within public employee unions, has changed.
Well, 24% increase. Oh, my God.
Excuse me, ladies. I don't consider a $100,000 salary and a $2 million net present value pension livable.
And you get 16 weeks a year off. 16 weeks.
Nobody can live on that.
Yeah.
Nobody can live on that. Not a livable wage. Kristen McQueary, Chicago Tribune columnist and editorial board member. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Good morning. Bye.
Bye. She joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
A great smile can make you feel happy and confident. So when you consciously conserve your teeth, that glowing smile will show through. At Best Dental Group, Doctors Economos, Gavalis,